we sit well in Canada. Hang on. We sit well in Canada watching what's going on in the United States and the rest of the world. But Canada, even though we have low numbers, isn't exactly doing well itself. On a per capita basis compared to other countries, we're really not doing that well. And we're about to explode, and the government's realizing that. So I think we need to really apply more common sense and more practical efforts to really mitigate the risk of infection. The government's kind of helped a bit with Bill C4, but it's still a bill with no teeth. But however, companies like yours can actually act on that, own the responsibility, and lead by example, and use that legislation, even though it's weak, to really mandate specific guidelines and measurements within your own environment that will ensure your safety and others in the environment.
Any questions for Michael around that at all? Maybe keep an eye on the chat as well.
Good morning, Michael. It's Joe Anderson here. I did put this question in our Slack channel a couple of days ago, and I did see a few responses. Curious from your perspective, though, what would you recommend to employers who, like, by and large, we've set up our employees to work remotely. You know, we've done everything we can to ensure that they have what they need to be home and productive, with a very, very small number of people who have to be in the office every day. What would your guidance be in terms of addressing employees who still want to come into the office, and especially now with the rate of infection increasing? You know, I think there's a desire, certainly on our part, to dissuade that as much as possible. We haven't yet sort of firmly said you're not allowed. But what are you sort of seeing generally out in the marketplace, and do you have any recommendations on that?
Right, so every company is different in their needs. However, the number one rule, and I would jump on Bill C4, and I would be harder than the government. Mask at all times in your environment, regardless if you have your own office or not. Never take the mask off. CDC just put up the other day again that the virus is airborne. I mean, we've known this since pretty much February, late January. The virus will maintain itself in the air, suspended for 4.5 hours, 5 hours. So when you recognize that and you understand these plastic barriers that people have, there's so much misconceptions out there. That plastic barrier may stop you from, me or you from spitting on each other or whatever, droplets in that sense, but it's not going to stop any suspension of a little aerosol-sized micron virus out there. And that will eventually, like smoke, go around all that kind of partitions. So when people can respect that and understand that, and finally the CDC has come to play and put that up, and I don't know, I mean, CDC is not a place that we've been able to trust lately, and Health Canada seems to follow suit with their guidelines. But now we are armed with Bill C4 and that knowledge for your company to embrace it, to empower yourselves to say, here's the rule in our office, in our environment, it's mask only, a mask all the time, no exceptions. That being said, the second thing is I would look at doing something very similar to what school boards are doing right now. And I can send you a link from like the Hamilton School Board. And basically that's a screening system. You don't have to collect any information. So on your website, have your employees or visitors do this 2-second screen. It's only bringing attention to them, the severity of it. And if they are actually going to ask the question that, yes, they have had flu-like symptoms or whatever, you know, that's for them to then realize maybe I shouldn't go in. And that little innocent measure actually does stop people from going in, even though you don't collect the data or you do anything with it. And that's a step in place. So I would put those two things in right away. Your people that are, to answer your questions very specifically, that want to enter the office, I mean, I don't know your environment and what it is. If you have 5 people and 200,000 square feet, sure, I mean, you know, you can manage that. They have to wear the mask at all times regardless. But if you're trying to control the volume and trying to set examples and you don't want to open the door for everybody wanting to have that privilege, I would then really mandate that they have to have very specific reasons. One last note on that, if you take the university scenario, McMaster University, They've canceled all the classes and stuff, but some of the lab work is very specific. They've mandated they have specific reasons to enter the facility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I mean, we have sort of an online questionnaire that people need to fill out the day before they come. It's like a registration and a thermal temperature reader at the door. So we've got those precautions in place. More recently, we mandated masks in common areas, but I think the one takeaway, and Bola's on the call as well from Gore Mutual this morning.
Yeah.
I think maybe the one takeaway that we'll bring back is perhaps that's not enough. Perhaps masks, no matter where you are in the building.
Yeah, I would say so, Joe, especially since most of our areas are common, they're open spaces. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense that we would have people just maintain the mask the whole day if they're in the office. Yeah.
Bill C4 states if anyone from the public can enter those areas, you have to have the mask on at all times. And I reiterate, any idea you have that you can separate this virus in an environment, like by having a separate door it should be thrown right out. You have to wear the mask at all times. It actually, if we look at stuff, studies done already, we can tell that the virus will be suspended in the air for hours. So someone could have been in there earlier, in the elevator or in your office or in the hallway, and you've just walked by that area and you've inhaled it. There was a major study, I said this on the last call, that was done, and they looked at hundreds of studies around the world, and they determined that there are 3 things to mitigate the risk of this virus. Obviously, physical distancing, basically stay away from everyone, right? 2, wearing a mask, and 3, goggles. So if you're on a factory floor and you have people working in environments that they have no control of air ventilation and everything, they should wear sealed goggles. The virus will enter any mucous membrane method.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. I know that Neena has just joined the call, and Neena, Michael was talking about the legislation that was introduced by the government. Do you have any, and Michael was saying, it doesn't have the teeth he would like to see, but do you have any comments on that legislation at all that would be helpful?
Yeah, a couple of things. I agree with Michael. I think there's a couple of problems with the legislation. One of it is that people can essentially claim that they have a medical exception and they don't have to produce any documentation. They can just assert that they have a, exemption, and then it's put on the shoulder of the employer or proprietor of a business as to what they're going to do in response to that. And I would have liked to have seen a broad, like just more teeth to it, including that it is like a legal offense and finable if you claim an exemption without justification. So the one thing, I had a little, I reread it yesterday, and I was listening to another legal commentator who said, well, you need to have your mask on indoors all the time. And it is different if you are an actual employee of the business or organization, if you're working in an area that's not accessible to the public and you can maintain that 2-meter distance. So what Gowlings has done is essentially for anybody who is working in our lawyer or law clerk offices, we do, if the door is closed, you are not required to wear a mask. As soon as you open the door or step out of the magic door, we are going to do it. But I agree with Michael, there should have been more teeth to it. And on a personal level, I am shocked by the number of people that wear their masks like below the mouth, under the chin, or like just touching, just like not properly over the nose, but just, like I'm sitting there going, I mean, that's not doing it. So, and anyway, I think there should have been more teeth and also more obligation on the employer to say, if you're not wearing, don't visit, and having an absolute right. Anyway, I feel for people who can't wear masks for legitimate reasons, but the more and more evidence that I see is that's a very narrow percentage of the
Yeah.
population. Like,
Mhm.
I'd leave it to Michael to comment on that, but even for people who are like asthmatic or whatever, there's suggestions that there's ways that they can wear a mask that works, or at least some kind of shield. So I'm sitting here going, come on, protect each other, because none of us can afford to get sick, or none of us can afford to give the disease to somebody else. So anyway, I agree with Michael that we need more teeth.
So there was a question from Maggie asking for clarification. Did I understand correctly that the CDC is now saying the virus is airborne, or is their official position still saying it's not airborne?
Right. So the whole conversation on the airborne has been quite the conversation, because calling the virus airborne per se, as it's always been known, the term airborne meaning really changes how things are done in a lot of established environments like hospitals and stuff. There's airborne precautions, there's all these things. This virus is like an airless-sized virus. So the CDC really says it better than I'm going to be able to say it. I haven't really said anything positive about the CDC in months, but in this particular case, I recommend everybody go to the CDC website and read their explanation that they just put up 2 days ago. It nails it. And let's understand the politics that's kept that away, and how the Canadian government has the Canadian government lacks their own researchers and investigators, and they just have politicians out there talking, and they followed suit on the CDC. This whole mask thing is a travesty, what we've gone through. But today we're now armed with what the CDC's finally put out 2 days ago. The whole conversation in the media will be changing, and is changing drastically. And you're going to remember back a month from now, hey, that guy on that call was saying wear the mask all the time. You really need to wear the mask all the time. If you are in your office, it doesn't matter. There was a study, and I don't remember what particular study it was, but I remember very particularly they talk about how the virus will go through air systems in a building. The same air systems that you're looking to protect yourself also has air intake valves and other methods for a virus to allow it to suspension to go through from blocked off area to another area. You're not helping yourself if you don't wear a mask in your own office. All right, everyone should be wearing it at all times inside all facilities, and that conversation will get louder as the days go by into November.
So, Michael, building on that, what are the best masks to wear? Because there's so many that are out there. And my partner just came home and he said a mask that we had bought that had a little plastic vent is now not acceptable.
Right. I wouldn't use a plastic vent. I mean, okay, look, I have asthma, and masks don't bother me. Masks do not affect person's breathing ability. It's just, it has a comfortability problem. I respect that. But so the best mask to have is just a simple 3-ply surgical mask. I would say they're even better than some of the homemade stuff, because homemade stuff, you're not really applying different layers. Walmart has packages of masks you can buy for $20, 50 masks in them. I bought hundreds of these, and they're disposable. They're the best, and they're the best ones to talk to, and you can actually breathe a little easier in these things. If those that have a contraption in there that allow you to breathe easier, also allow you to exhale your breath and everything out there, and those aren't appropriate masks. I mean, let's look at what we're talking about. There are not enough N95 masks out there for the general public. So we're settling on surgical masks, which are not as good. If people go out there with these other masks that allow the breathing contraption in there, the plastic dial and all that stuff, you're just degrading your ability to be protected even more. And you're endangering other people too if you're asymptomatic, or if you are symptomatic. So
That's
stay
helpful.
away from those.
Yeah.
And stay away from those
Thanks.
shields, those crazy shields that I see that people wear with no mask. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Would you recommend the shield with the mask? Would that be helpful, or do you need the sealed
Right.
goggle?
Right. So personally, I wouldn't wear a shield. Now, if I was in a production line, I mean, if I was in an environment that was, if I was a grocer, if I was a cashier dealing with someone's food, I'd wear gloves, because people shed. And as the person getting the food, I don't want that person shedding on my food during this pandemic. And two, they may want to wear a shield, and they should wear a mask. I would just do that because they are really exposed to a variety of things and there's no control of their environment. But you guys have, some of you guys have manufacturing floors, right? I would scrap the shield. I'd wear a mask and airtight goggles, right? On your production floors where you cannot control your environment. In your office setting, right now I wouldn't worry about goggles or shields. I would wear just the mask. And I would set all our offices to have relative humidity between 40 and 60%, because this is a respiratory virus. And one of the most significant things we can do in our office environments, our home environments, is setting relatively humidity at between 40 and 60%. And respiratory viruses don't like that. Remember, the drier the air, the longer the microns and the virus can spread, because they float. The wetter the air, the more damp and heavier things fall to the floor. In other words, less chance for you to inhale it or have it go through your ears or eyes.
That's helpful. Thank you, Michael. There was a question from David for Neena. Would the employer's obligations under the general duty clause requiring an employee to take all reasonable precautions not override the mask exemption to some degree? Sorry, employer, non-employee.
Oh, okay, sorry. So I actually think that you have to have a way of accommodating. So one of my retail customers has done the point of saying, no mask, no entry. If you need accommodation, call this number or email us and we will make special accommodations. Now, the special accommodations they have planned is that they will have essentially, the person comes in, workers, only one worker will be there and keep that 10-foot distance. They're not doing 6 foot, they're doing 10 foot. And that the transaction will actually be run through by phone, like they won't even come near the counter. They'll call in their credit card and then it will be some magic internet will happen and there will be a receipt generated. So they're essentially saying, and they will do that as a special accommodation at a special time, slightly outside regular hours, and give you a 15-minute slot to do whatever you need. And if you can tell them ahead of time what you need, they'll even kind of do like curbside delivery, whatever, etc. The point of that is no one's actually called. So what the employer thinks is that they may have lost a tiny bit of business, but they're okay because their workers are far happier, right? Like at the end of the day, I'm not sure, there may be a little bit of theatrics going on, but the fact that the employer has taken such a strong stance, they've done it. They also have trained the manager to politely ask for the people who are wearing their masks here, to say, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to put it, the rules are over the nose, under the chin. And here's another, like there's a mask that you can use that can do that. Or we're going to have to ask you to go. There's apparently been a couple of older people, to my surprise, who've been very huffy about that. But they said, look, at the end of the day, we would rather lose a customer than lose an employee. So they've been pretty blunt. And, Michael, I'd be interested in knowing, really understanding in what medical circumstances, because it seems like to me that people say, well, I've got mask anxiety, or I'm really trying to understand what real genuine medical needs for accommodation might be where they could have to transact business in a way where they don't wear a mask.
Right. So, so this pandemic got thrown upon us very quickly, and the legal issues associated to fighting all these things are too vague and open that no one's going to put teeth behind anything. So right now there's no, first of all, to answer your question, I don't know anything out there that is any medical condition that would prevent you from wearing a mask. Maybe some people have severe breathing problems. I don't know. But I know that when you wear the mask, your oxygen levels do not drop. It doesn't affect that. If you look at the surgical masks that we're being asked to wear, people in hospitals wear them for 10-hour, 12-hour shifts. Right? There's whole operations that last 8, 9 hours, 36 hours, and they go in for their shift and they have these masks on all the time. And they are doing very intense, very critical work that does not have room for error, and the mask does not affect them. Those are the same masks we're being asked to wear. So I go with that.
There was a question that has come up, or a comment from from Joanna. My friend has been asked by his employer to fly to Nova Scotia for work next week. What precautions can he take before hopping on that plane? I feel for him.
Yeah, so to get on the plane, I would wear a mask. I would wear goggles. Personally, that if I was to get on a plane, I'm a guy that travels a lot, and I haven't traveled at all since February. I was get on the plane today, I would wear a mask, goggles, and I would try my best to have a seat away from somebody. I mean, there's not much else you can do. The airlines make a myth that everything's safe. I work with companies that disinfect these airlines. I mean, it doesn't matter. The disinfecting of an environment is irrelevant compared to how quickly a human sheds, right? A person will shed a virus in seconds, and you have to beat that over the environment, so.
Thanks for that. And
Can I make one
question.
comment?
Yeah.
The person who's been asked to fly to Nova Scotia should review whether or not the Nova Scotia regulations with respect to quarantine for 14 days or for the duration of the entirety of their stay, if it's less than 14 days, and whether there is an actual exemption for self-isolation. Because certain people like fishermen, temporary foreign workers, etc., there might be. But anyway, so the person may be flying to Nova Scotia. I don't know what they're going to do because they're supposed to quarantine for 14 days. At least that's what the last I heard.
He has to isolate, but he is an essential worker, so he can work, and that's it.
Okay, so he's an essential worker. Okay, fine. So, and that is a very narrow, by the way, essential worker. So making sure that that is true. So, because many people I think of myself as an essential worker, but we're not under the Nova Scotia rules. So make sure the person checks the Nova Scotia rules for what is an essential worker, as opposed to the Government of Canada or Ontario rules.
Thanks, Neena. And Amy had a question. What's your advice on accommodations for staff who are required to wear a mask for PPE but are having issues such as dermatitis and can't wear it for a time? Acceptable to find alternate work away from participants is the question. It's not an option to not wear PPE, correct?
Yes, to me, it's not an option not to wear it. If they have sensitivity problems, I don't know off the top of my head where else to go, but I would contact your supplier if you have if you're not hooked up with a supplier, or I can help you talk to someone that supplies hospitals and such to find alternatives.
So from a legal perspective, you try to accommodate the person, like for example, getting them to work from home. But if they're going to be coming into contact with people and can't maintain that 2-meter distancing as required by the legislation, they can't work. And one thing I would say, because I know a number of people have sensitive skin, is that sometimes changing the mask from one kind of supplier, or even having it lined. So a friend of mine lines her with silk. She's Indian, so she has 100 saris that are old, and she lines her masks with silk. So she's essentially wearing a silk mask and then wearing the surgical mask on top. May not be the best for a seal. And she says, silk is wonderful. It doesn't cause her dermatitis to flare up. Not saying that that is the scientific answer, but sometimes changing up the actual mask may help the dermatitis once it's healed.
Thank you. And there's a question from Bola about applying Bill C4, wondering if the company leaves must be exhausted before an employee would be eligible for the leaves under the government programs. Bola, did I ask that right?
Yes, that's right. So we are at Gore Mutual, we have sick leave for employees that they can take. The sick leaves can be applied both for themselves and also be used for family members. So if there's a family member at home who's sick, they can use it for that. So we just want to know how we can, inform our employees to coordinate that, if those leaves need to be used first before they can then take these other leaves under the government programs.
So that's actually more of a Gore Mutual contract question than it is a Bill C4 question. Obviously, the employee can't double dip, can't collect from Gore and collect from government support programs. The default assumption is that if these circumstances of the absence fall within the narrow sick leave, in other words, I'm sick or my child is sick, probably they would access Gore's benefits first and then go on government leave. But there's a whole host of reasons why people are staying at home, like their kid needs to go to school. They're not actually sick, but there's another reason why they have to stay home, like it's more caregiver leave. And those are often not covered by your company's sick leave policy. And so they would just go directly to Bill C4 or all the government benefits.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions for Michael or Neena? Anything that, oh, here we go. What do you recommend for workers we have operating forklift trucks who are having issues with safety glasses steaming up when they were wearing masks? Is a face shield going to provide enough protection?
Right, so use goggles if you can replace those glasses, use goggles instead in that environment. However, you can put surgical tape on top of the mask to stop your breath going up. And what else did I hear? If you clean the glasses with shaving cream, the gel shaving cream, that helps a bit, but not permanently. It's widely talked about online, but definitely the surgical tape to prevent your air going up to the glasses.
Interesting. I never heard that before.
Yeah, it's come up.
I know there's going to be products that come out there to put on glasses to keep it from fogging up, I'm sure, if they're not already out there. Any other questions that we have out there? Yeah, Victoria.
I have a question. So we have indicated mask use in our office for the last number of time. We have people that are working in the office. The office is all 6 feet apart. We have one individual that has indicated that they cannot wear a mask due to health reasons. He's wearing a face shield, but he is walking throughout the office. So I'm hearing from you, Michael, in terms of your recommendations about the airborne, and I'm interested, Neena, in your thoughts on that. If we're changing our policy to indicate that masks must be hard stop worn throughout the office, is it that if we cannot accommodate that we're saying that you do need to wear the mask in the office, that because he can't do his job from home, that we're looking at a leave then for him if he's not able to wear a mask?
So number one, has he provided any medical documentation as to why he can't wear a mask?
We haven't asked for it yet, but I think we're at that stage where we'll need to understand more.
So, I mean, I believe that he's looking at a leave, and then he would have to justify it to the government and see if he's, going to be able to get a government, one of the government benefits, whether he qualifies for it. I can't comment on it. Mm-hmm. The face shield is, I don't think, good enough, and Michael's confirmed that.
Yep.
And he's walking around the office. So the other thing you can look at is there a way of, because we've done this a couple of times, which is he comes in at a certain time, he sits at his station, and he doesn't move through the office. Now, if his job requires him to move through the office, obviously that is not a good enough accommodation.
Yeah.
Can I just say that if he sits at a station, he walks in the building, and he uses the washroom, the virus will suspend in the air for hours. You have the CDC guidelines and the statement, and then Health Canada eventually follows suit. This will be available for you. I wouldn't allow it. I mean, you are literally armed with this information right now that this virus, this person, it's unfortunate we have to talk to someone. Whoever thought would be here today, but this individual is choosing for whatever reasons not to wear the most basic layer of protection that we have. And the shield is nothing, is literally nothing.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about. Yeah, okay, thank you.
So from, let's see here. from Michelle, how long does Michael think a company should be looking to maintain working from home? Just interested in your opinion.
Right. So this comes up a lot in different forms, this question, but let's look at the facts. A vaccine comes out, vaccine's not a silver bullet. We're going to be dealing with this for about a whole year. So we look at some universities have already canceled classes all next winter semester. I'm looking at, we're probably going to be going through this until better therapeutics come out, not vaccines. The therapeutics will be out eventually, hopefully by spring next year, that'll help mitigate the severe cases in the environment. But I think we're looking at masks, and we're looking at a situation that we have right now, right through the fall into the winter, which is going to be, like I said and many others have said, the worst in living history. But then I think we're going to start seeing some hope of sunlight as we head into summer. I think we'll be better equipped for next fall. But I'm pretty sure we're going to have some measurements still in place, but I don't know what they look like today.
And is that following the same pattern as the Spanish flu did, Michael?
Okay, so the Spanish flu was about a 3-year ordeal. Not the same virus by any stretch of the imagination, and they did not have the ability that we have today in science to come up with therapeutics. And I'll say it again, every time I hear the vaccine conversation, I ignore it. The vaccine takes time to be adopted. You need a significant amount of the environment people to use it. I'm a firm believer in vaccines. We advocate for vaccines all the time, but that herd mentality that will be made possible only through vaccine, no other method, takes time, and it has to be widely adopted. Our best hope is therapeutics. Back 100 years ago, they didn't have any of this. And it's these therapeutics, the steroids, and the stuff that's coming down the pipe. That's what's going to get us through this, because it's going to take the severe cases and bring them down to moderate cases, and we're going to have a far better tolerance level to this virus.
So in terms of where we can get reliable current information that we can share with our employees and teams, where would you suggest that we go?
Right. Okay. Obviously, number one, to your local health authority, whether it's your regional to your federal government. We're talking all about Canadians here. And then two, we have a resource available to provide you. We have a series of masterclass. These are webinars that are free for you to watch by world-leading scientists and people that talk about how to mitigate risks, air, water, and surfaces. In this case, it's air and surfaces. And we have our open access journal. We provide plenty of articles on the conversation, mostly on technology surrounding how to mitigate the risk and advancements. And if so you want to email out we have a series of websites. We have 6 websites in total. And we have a deep dive podcast series available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google. Like we interview people like Dr. Richard Heinzel, founder of Medicine Frontiers and stuff.
Excellent. So what I'll do is when I post the video for everyone, I'll also post your website. And if there are particular links that you want me to include, Michael, if you want to just fire those off to me, and I'll make sure that I put those up as well, that would be great. And just reminding everyone that TIPS, or the Infection Prevention Strategy, is a not-for-profit organization that has been doing work in infection prevention and control for many, many years, correct?
Yeah, well, we launched in 2015. So
2015, okay. So
this time.
And it's experts from around the world that are part of this strategy?
Yeah. So TIPS, the Infection Prevention Strategy, is an NGO. We're not for profit. We're based in Canada, Hamilton, Ontario. But however, we span 36 countries. We have our open access journal, our masterclass series. We are strategic partners, and we host some of the most significant conferences in North America. Of course, most of them are not happening right now. And we have right now we have over 20 efficacy studies specifically on SARS-2 COVID that are out there right now. We do a lot of work. Our mission is to advance innovations, ideas, and processes that make a difference in global health, and that's what we do.
Yeah, so thank you so much for being here. And I know that you guys are doing great work, and it's reliable information by scientists who just are trying to crack that nut in terms of infection prevention. Are there any other questions? I just wanted to make sure people knew where Michael was coming from in terms of where their information is being gathered, and the people that are part of this part of TIPS. Any questions from, or anybody want to share what they're doing in their organization or concerns you have?
Hey, Patricia.
Hi, Andrea. Yeah.
Not so much as, well, now I'm really scared and freaked out.
I know.
But
We're here at the beginning.
oh my goodness. But we have had a few people work in the office. We've been open at the end of July, but really just voluntary, maybe probably about a dozen people, really wide space. And we've always had mandated masks on the move. And so, but the only place you could take off was if you're physically at your workstation. Because we have so few people in the office, they're quite spread out, but should I be changing my policies? You to wear it all day long. I just want to balance the safety and also the reality that the building is quite empty as well. I know the example Neena brought up, in their office, if you're in your space, you could take it off, or if you're eating.
Right. So if you're asking me, and this is my opinion, I would wear it all day long. I definitely would not. I mean, we're headed into a scenario that is unprecedented, and you don't want to get this. This virus is in no case whatsoever mild. You don't know what the long-term effects of it are. We've put these names around this virus. We've called it non-airborne for a while, and we use the term mild way too much. There's consequences to catching this virus that could be detrimental for your entire life. So the risk is not worth it. I would keep a mask on all the time. A mask is not even foolproof. I mean, but it's all we have.
Mm-hmm. Hope you feel better, Andrea. So Kathy is asking about your opinion on flu shots during the pandemic. Do you think it's a good idea to get one?
Of course, always get a flu shot. I mean, I don't see the flu being as big as a problem as some people are going to say it is going to be this year if we're all buckled up and suited up and stuff. But big proponent for vaccines. If the flu shot's available, we should all be getting the flu shot. Mitigate the risk. You don't want to get both.
Gosh, no. Anybody else have any questions at all? That was a good question, Kathy. Thank you. Now you know where I'm going after this. Amy. Oh, Amy, yeah, you've got a unique environment for sure.
Well, and the question's been raised by our team, and maybe I guess so all of our staff, and I'm sure many people on here, their operations did continue for the majority of the time, and we're sort of a mix. We've had people in, we've had people out, we've had people in really high risk areas. We've had, so our men's shelter is a fine example of that. And then we've had, our office staff or our counseling services gone online. So we've had a good mix. And now, the question came up, what are we going to do to prepare for the second wave? And my feeling in response, and I'm sort of responding to, I'm sorry, I think was it Andrea who just spoke? Yeah, that feeling of fear, because I'll tell you, the first few months of this, I lived on like a 10 out of 10 fear that I think was pretty reality based in terms of the real risks that our staff were facing. And the fact that we didn't have, we had so many different, so much different information coming at us about PPE. We knew that PPE wasn't available. I'm feeling going into this, and I would say again, working in a fairly high risk environment with our staff, that we have so much more at our fingertips at this point. There's so much better information. We have an excellent PPE pipeline. We have suppliers. I'm not trying to go on the black market and find masks for my staff. And so while I'm not feeling glib by any means, we continue to remind our staff to be vigilant. I think that's our worst issue right now, is people now being comfortable. And they've been at this for 7 months, wearing masks every day, following the protocols, and we're seeing people slip. And I think out of everything, I'm not as afraid of the resurgence of numbers. I'm more afraid of the fact that our staff aren't afraid anymore. And so it's just constantly trying to reinforce that with them. And now we're moving into sometimes some performance issues because people aren't wearing their PPE and having to strong arm a little bit for their safety. So a little bit less fear on my part, but just feeling that we need to be so vigilant and really continuously pushing this with staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for those of you who don't know, Amy works with the House of Friendship. So she's working with, you know, her and her team are working with vulnerable populations as well. So that just escalates the situation more so. Michael, is there anything that you're seeing out there in terms of education or information that we could be sharing with organizations about keeping vigilant?
Right. I mean, I'm not seeing much from the government coming out in effective marketing campaigns to really hammer home the information that they say in their midday conferences that most people can't watch. It's really unfortunate. And so the best place for most people to get their information, other than our organization, it would be the trusted media sources, CBC, and the ones that have the call-ins with experts that really know a lot more than I do. They're able to give you the pulse on the news that comes in daily, and I think that's a very valuable source of information in a world that's very polarized by politics coming from the United States.
Yeah. So from an HR perspective, it really is keeping that messaging up, but making sure that it's just not background noise, right? Like, oh, here's another message. So it's trying to find that balance. Are you finding that your managers are vigilant? Like, are you finding your leaders are having these conversations regularly? Or have they slipped to the back burners now? No, good, Andrea. So you're saying that that's happening regularly? Because I think that's, it can come out from HR, but then again, sometimes it just seems like background noise, like, oh, there's another message. But if it comes from the leaders, then that's got a different weight to it. And leaders wearing their PPE all the time as well is so important too. So if anybody has any ideas or any campaign that they're running, we would love to hear from you. If you wanted to share that, what you're doing and present one week, we would really appreciate that. Are there any other questions for Michael or Neena? And Sherry's saying we're encouraging everyone to download the COVID app as well. And we just had, thanks for mentioning that, Sherry, we just have Andrea Gilbrook, who has joined our group, and she is working with the organization in Waterloo that designed the COVID app. So we're glad to have her on board. And Michael, with the COVID app, do you recommend that?
Of course. I mean,
That could have gone really bad.
Right. You mean the app from the government, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hope they overcome some of the limitations of that, but I mean, is definitely an effort that is. I mean, we were excited to hear about it. We don't know. We haven't heard much news. I can say this one more time. This government, our government in Canada, has really failed on communicating the messaging that they talk. They have these multi-hour news conferences every day in the province and in the federal government, but they don't communicate much of what they're talking about. So I would encourage everybody to take the time to listen to BBC at least once a day and try to get the world perspective out there. Because if you want to have a message, a coffee talk message to your team leaders, really try to convey what's going on globally to our local perspective, because we're getting pretty complacent in Canada. And
so
that's
on that topic, Michael, what are we seeing around the world?
Oh, the virus is out of control. I mean,
so the lockdown again?
Yeah, I mean, so we're all busy working all the time, and if we don't digest world news from reliable sources, we're not understanding what we're in. And if you want to know what we're headed to, other parts of the country have already had their winter. All right, so it's been very clear what we're about to go to, and the numbers are rising drastically in France, Israel, Germany, 4,000 yesterday in Germany. The numbers are going higher than they were at any time this year. And if you're not hearing this information, one of the best sources obviously would be BBC News. You're not really understanding what's coming to us here. And we are not doing as great as you may think we are in Canada. We're doing pretty good, but we could have done a lot better. And it sounds like we weren't prepared for what's coming now. And if you want to have conversation pieces for your team, I would really suggest listening to world news. And I'm not talking United States, which is a bubble on its own in polarization, but the BBC, when you're going to hear about everyone else in the world and what they're going through, and that's what we're headed to. And we're in the midst of it. Look at Quebec and Ontario. They're not testing as much now, so the numbers are going to be a little mixed up, but you'll learn a lot listening to BBC. I'm babbling now.
So, yeah, Bola, go ahead.
Sorry, now
sorry.
one of the questions I had, and you know, if cases are going up, then we could probably, you know, schools are open right now and daycares are open, but as cases rise, that may no longer be on the table, right? And I think at GORE, we've been, you know, very vocal about, you know, that flexibility that we're going to be providing to people. We're lucky in that a lot of our workforce, the majority of them, 90-95% can work from home, which is great. But myself, you know, having 2 young children, when they're here with me in the bedroom, like running around the back, obviously productivity can be a factor as well. And so as we don't know how long, you know, we'll be in this state, I'm just curious to know, how are people looking at ways, or how are companies looking at ways to embed, you know, just flexibility. And then of course we're looking at things like productivity or performance, and how do we kind of manage those pieces while still remaining flexible. So I guess it's just more of a comment and observation, and maybe just interested in the thoughts of the people on the call and how they've done that effectively.
Okay, Patricia, can I perhaps comment on that?
Yes, please, Neena.
Sorry. Yeah. So this isn't going to work for everyone because there are people in different situations, but I'm encouraging employers to consider being flexible as to time. So if somebody has a spouse, and for whatever reason they need to work, let's say 9 to 12 or 12 to 5, maybe we can split the day off into shifts. And even looking at weekends. So maybe they can only work 5 hours a day, Monday to Friday, but they can make up some of that time on the weekend. It's not optimal due to, you know, like we all need a break, but it may be the best thing we got, you know, like, you know, splitting the day. We've got people who start their work at 6 a.m. in the morning when I'm still snoring, according to my husband, and they work till 10. They then take over the shift from their husband, and the husband then works from 10 to 2, then, you know, and they just kind of do that. And it's not perfect and it's not wonderful, but it's what's happening.
Yeah.
The other thing is you can look at, you know, you need to be really flexible about saying, okay, I know your hours are X, but would it help if we went down to 30 hours a week? And maybe there's an adjustment in compensation, but it's better than 0 and better than the government, you know, subsidy. The other thing that we're saying is you've got to relax your performance standards. There are things that are not happening as well as I would like, or other managers were like, but is the person doing the best they can sincerely under very difficult circumstances? And if so, sorry, they're going to get, you know, they're going to get a bye this year. Because if you start saying, well, I need you to answer X and Y and do this and do that, it's just overwhelmingly, because I don't know anybody who feels like they're doing a good job, including myself. I'm going to be very blunt. I feel like a failure because my house is a mess. You know, my files are a mess. I'm being very candid with everybody on the call. I think there's a level of sophistication here. I'm still a good lawyer, just in case you wonder, but everybody's feeling it, and I'm very resilient. Like, you know, I have a hide of a rhinoceros. If I'm feeling it, and I don't have young children that I'm worried about going to school or doing homeschooling, I can't imagine what it's like for my younger colleagues that are trying to manage all of this. So, flexibility, reduction in hours if necessary, open conversation, and a recognition that if the person's doing the best they can, we're not going to hold them to the pre-COVID standards. And here's my slogan. You know how there's that "we shall overcome"? My slogan is "we shall muddle through," because it is not going to be this glamorous, wonderful way of making it through. We're just going to, it's hard slogging through the mud. So we shall muddle through. And if we can muddle through safely and healthy until perhaps the fall of 2021 or maybe earlier, you know, we really succeeded. That's definition of success for us.
Neena, you couldn't have said it better. That was amazing, and thank you for being so candid and honest. And we all know you're an amazing lawyer, but that really does help. I think we need to share that more often. Lola?
Yeah, no, that's definitely helpful. And, you know, we've done, I think we've been great as a company, you know, whether it's, you know, flexible hours, whether it's different work hours, whether it's you want to go to part-time status, whatever it is. So, you know, thanks for that. It's good to know. And I saw that some people put some options in the chat as well, which is great. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so
And
much.
I just wanted to say, it's depressing, sorry, if you read the news about how many women have quit their jobs.
Yeah,
and so we've had
absolutely.
people who have sort of suggested that, and we've said, no, we're not accepting your resignation. Go away, take one of the government leaves, even take an unpaid leave. You've worked too hard to quit. Maybe it's true that you can't work under the circumstances. You've got elder care and child care, and it's just not working for you, even part-time. But I am telling people, if you can avoid accepting resignations, obviously, you know, obviously there may be circumstances where you're delighted to accept a resignation, but other than those, if you can essentially push back, because if you, there's just some horrendous statistics in this, mostly from the States, about how many women are giving up their careers due to COVID, that we have wiped out 40 years of progress regarding women's participation in the labor force in 7 months.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know we're getting up on the 10:30 here. I did want to share that on October the 29th, I'll be sending out the invitation shortly. We're going to have, and you may know her, Neena, Sharon Barr David is going to be doing a session on abrasive leaders and how to handle them. So thought this might be timely to talk about. So look for Sharon's bio and the subject topic coming up. It'll be in the meeting invite. Michael, I can't thank you enough for being here. We really do appreciate it. And Neena, of course, you know, your input around this as well from the legal aspect is always appreciated. And Michael, thanks for all the great work you and your organization are doing. We'll stay in touch and hope to have you back with better news. I kind of realized maybe I shouldn't have scheduled this topic for the day before a long weekend. Kind of was a bit of a bummer, but I think it does help us to really reinforce the fact that we need to be vigilant. So thank you.
Can I say one thing? Can I do a hold the date?
Yes.
I know that Patricia will share it at some point in time, but I do.
Oh, yeah, and sorry, Neena, I didn't share it because Jill had sent it out, but I will share it again. Sorry.
Right. So just for those of you on the call and for friends, it's November 17th. Many of you have come to our in-person events at either Whistlebear or Bingham's or Holiday Inn. We're obviously not doing in-person events this year. Thanks to Jill Zapatelli and the fact that she was relentless in saying we need to do something. November 17th, we are doing our, I think, 6th or 7th annual Hot Topics in HR. There'll be a mix of legal, HR onboarding, supporting people through mental stress, and it's going to be a great seminar. Unfortunately, we are not going to be able to give away the goodies and the prizes. So we are actually donating $1,500 to Child and Family Services. Jill is on the board because we know that families and children are under stress. And I would love all of you to come. The invitation will go out and share it widely because we don't have any room constraints. So that's one of the good things. There's always a silver lining. The silver lining is we are not physically constrained by the room we've rented.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always such a great event, Neena. So yeah, that is a plus for anybody who's attended. I know many people on the call have. We always walk away going, gosh, I wish we had more time because there's always great conversation. David had a quick, how is the COVID app really intended?
Yeah, can I respond to that actually?
I love that.
So for anyone who's worried about the COVID tracking app, so how it works, you turn Bluetooth on. Your Bluetooth will figure out who else has turned on this Bluetooth and figure out the distance. It measures in 15-minute intervals. So it doesn't track your location. It's only Bluetooth. We obviously have a very vibrant tech community here. We have Arctic Wolf and eCentaur, who are both like network security companies, as you know, and their dev teams have taken a look at this app. Everything is open source, and they said that they're using it as well. So these are network security people who are very comfortable using the application. It does exactly what it says it does, and it does not do anything it doesn't say it does.
Thank you, Joanna.
Yeah, so it does require for you, if you test positive, you have to go get a code and then you have to put it into the app. And yes, they're supposed to be quarantining, but they might not know that they were positive when they were out and about. So it'll backtrack to, okay, these are all the people that you came into contact with and was within a certain distance for over 15 minutes.
Great. Thanks for that, Joanna. I think a lot of people have questions about that. So I appreciate that. Michael, any last words from you?
Other than I'd like to talk to, we would like to have a short article on the COVID app on our journal, if we could get one, so we can communicate it out there. I don't know if that's what you do, Joanna, but we have a method for that if you want to email me. I have nothing else other than listen to CBC, BBC, get a world perspective of the news, listen, try to digest what's going on, and check out the CDC updated messaging on the virus that was put up 2 days ago. It's a game changer.
For sure, it sounds like it. So thank you again, Michael, and to everyone on the call. Have a wonderful and restful Thanksgiving. And we'll have the Slack tutorial next week with Maggie Middleton, because I really need it. And then we have Sarah Becker coming up to do a session the following week on the benefits and technology, et cetera. And then we have Sharon Bar-David coming in to talk about abrasive leaders. And Jessica O'Connor from Service Canada, I'm going to be scheduling something with her to talk about some of the government programs and give us an update on that, so that we know what's going on with the different wage subsidy and curb and all that good stuff. Okay, so bye everyone. Have a great weekend and take care of yourselves. Thanks for coming. Bye, Michael. Say hi to Lori.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.